I'm here at Owen's Playground on Saturday, July 16th with Stacy Marshall, who is brains and imagination and passion behind this. Stacy, congratulations. After so many years of work, it is coming to fruition. How is this feeling for you?
It is overwhelmingly beautiful. This is what we built it for.
Can you just give us a little recap of what it was that came to mind for you to build this? What was the vision you had initially?
Of course. Yeah, I have thought about this so frequently and have even included words from my son Owen's memorial, which was October of 2013. He was the inspiration, but I think so much of it stemmed from the love and the joy that we experienced with him, and the fact that play for our family is so incredibly important. And we found that having a child with mobility challenges and a number of significant disabilities, that play was often off limits for us. And so when Owen passed away in October of 2013, we knew immediately what we wanted to do with the memorial funds that were being given in his name, in his honor.
This has been several years in the making. I think you had said to me that one of the most beautiful things about this has been the collaboration of the community. What have you found in the community and in all the people who have wanted to be a part of it? Where have they come from?
They have gravitated to the project and to this space. There are very few people, actually, that I went and sought out, or that the team went and sought out. I think I've had this conversation with so many people, including Dan Hamlin at the parks, Chris Kane, the landscape architect. Constantly, we would say, well, that was in the stars. I mean, it just would happen.
You also have attracted attention from groups and individuals all around the country who have wanted to be a part of this or who have wanted to learn more about it. Can you tell us a little about that?
Sure. Well, inclusive, accessible, barrier-free component of this play space is really paramount to the design. And we're starting to see a wave across the country, communities, park districts, paying attention to the fact that we don't see all of our community members in public spaces and on playgrounds. And I don't think it's going to take too many more of these for this to actually become a national movement.
And people have contacted you about coming to see this, right?
Indeed. Yeah, we have a wait list. For after the grand opening, we have community members in Chapel Hill, in Bremerton, actually, and in Chico, California, who want to know exactly how we did this, how we included community, how we achieved the outcome. So that's exciting. It's exciting. And what has come out of that, too, are collaborations with Lovejoy, the designer for the Sensory Garden, Studio Hanson Roberts, who is the landscape architect in charge of the design. And our hope is to put together a collaborative piece, a loose how-to guide for other communities to be able to do something like this, but something that's specific and unique to their own community. And that's exciting, too, to be able to do that kind of outreach and spread the word.
Mm-hmm. And there are some pieces here in this playground that are unique to our community. There is some artwork, for instance. Could you talk about your logo, the pinwheel?
Sure. That was actually designed by a dear friend who knew Owen very well. She's a senior graphic designer out of Chapel Hill, lived in Seattle area with her family when Owen was alive. As is the case with so much of the art and the work that came to the playground, that was done completely pro bono, like absolutely from the heart. I mean, it's different when there's that financial transaction, and that's necessary, and that has happened many times over in creating the space. But it's different when it comes from the heart and it's being given as a gift. Mm-hmm. And that has happened repeatedly.
Yes, I understand there are just hundreds, thousands perhaps, of volunteer hours contributed here by members of the community.
Absolutely. And people, again, who come to the project and just ask, how can I help? I really want to be a part of this project.
Well, it has been a labor of love for so many people, and it's a tribute to your enduring commitment and passion to this project, but also to what community can do, what a sense of community can bring about. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk with us about this.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks for the honor, Tanny. I appreciate it.
My mama told me don't lose you, 'cause the best luck I had was you. And I know one thing, that I love you. I say, hey, I'll be gone today, but I'll be back, come around the way.
I'm Channy Peters for BCB, Bainbridge Community Broadcasting, with Ann Lovejoy. On this joyous day, the opening ceremony for Owen's Playground. Ann is a longtime Bainbridge Island community member and an author and a passionate gardener. I'm so delighted that you are willing to come over and have a few words with us. Thank you, Ann.
Of course, Channy, it's my pleasure.
I understand that you have built this magnificent garden of sensory and edible plants. Why was that important?
Well, the whole sensory piece, of course, is hugely important, especially for people who might be nonverbal, but even for anyone who's as verbal as me, which is a lot. Because we interpret the world through our senses, right? Mm-hmm. So part of it for me was texture, color, fragrance, and flavor. And so this garden is meant to be experienced on every possible level. No matter what your abilities or disabilities, there's something here that's going to be magical for you. But of course, when you are working with people who may have various kinds of disabilities, you have to really consider a number of things. If you have a compromised immune system, for instance, you might be affected by excess pollen. You don't want too many bees where children's play, so you can't have super bee attracting plants, though ordinarily, of course, I would be planting those. Mm-hmm. You have to think about things like, is it toxic in any part at all? Or if it's very fragrant, you could even trigger a seizure in someone. So you have to consider all these various things when you're choosing plants. And even in terms of color, because, for instance, bees don't see red very well. So I chose a lot of things in the red spectrum, which are less attractive to bees. Which, isn't that interesting?
Good idea.
I know, you've got to think about it. But I also wanted stuff that was fun to look at. So part of what's going to happen here, this is full right now of things like nasturtiums and kale, cabbages, strawberries, and all placed at heights where you could reach from a wheelchair and pick a tomato and eat it, and then pick a piece of basil and eat that. So you can make your salad as you walk along the path, right? So it's very accessible in that sense. But as things grow on, there's going to be lots of other sorts of things too. Interesting shapes, interesting textures that feel fascinating, and I'm going to do what I call my petting zoo for plants, so that you could go along and stroke all these various things. You'd release a little fragrance. Here, there's a curry plant that smells just like curry powder. How weird is that? There's lavender, of course, and that sort of thing, but also many of these plants smell weird, like some things smell like peanut butter. Some things, I know, smell like watermelon rind. It's very strange. And there are berries that taste exactly like slightly scorched homemade butterscotch. Seriously, Chinese shrub. So all these things are going to be incorporated so that people can have a very full experience as they ramble or stroll or push their way through this lovely spiral. Isn't that cool?
That is amazing. And this garden is vast. I thought that it was just going to be a little itty-bitty thing, but you seem to have worked it into all the play areas. Was that in the initial plan?
No, initially it was that very small corner over on the side that was going to be the sensory garden, but their mistake was they asked me. And once I'm involved, you're in trouble, right? Well, and one of the things we realized is we needed to soften. There's a great deal of hardscape in here because there needs to be, of course, for accessibility. But in order to balance that, you also need a lot of life. And so there's wood and rock, there's water and rubber, but there's also this whole flow of plants. And the biggest piece for me was incorporating the community. So when I figured out what we wanted, we were going to start with annuals and edibles, I started inviting the community to help me plant things and handed out packages of seed, and children and school groups and families grew on all these things. And of course, then they came and helped plant them and became engaged. And now some of those same people are helping to care for the garden. How cool is that?
And you have some very special things in the garden. Tell us about the fig tree.
The keystone anchor plant in that original sensory garden bed was a fig tree that my mom had been grown in a pot in her apartment for many years and just adored that fig tree. And she got actual figs off it too, which is kind of amazing. And when late in life she came to live with me, I, of course, had to bring her entire garden with her, and including the fig in the pot. And I just thought, what a lovely way to carry that forward by putting it in a place where it will offer figs for a whole new generation. Sweet.
There are also some structures for growing vines, and I think they're quite unusual, if I understand correctly. Could you tell us about two of them?
I certainly will. If you look, there's two portal kind of trellises that are dark green, and those were originally bicycle racks. They had kind of a sine curve of metal tubing, and I captured those when they were getting tossed away and decided they had to be recycled. So the Clever Parks crew turned them into wonderful, wonderful trellises. And we've got Concord grapes on one and we're putting golden hops on another. That's very magical. But for my favorite, I think, is what I call the Hobbit House, which I had asked if the guys could put together a little bean trellis for me, maybe a handful of rebar with some wire at the top to make kind of a teepee, right? No, they laminated 5 or 6 kinds of beautiful wood, steamed this gentle curve like a boat, made a gorgeous finial to go on the top, and then wove it together with these panels so plants can clamber up it, and it makes an incredible little playhouse. This is the imagination and the heart. This is truly a labor of love. You don't see that as a real thing in real life very often. This is a real labor of love.
And because of that, as you pointed out, people have a vested interest in maintaining this and caring for it. So they'll be coming back to do that.
Well, and we are going to have an edible portion every year where people will be planting and growing and coming and putting things into the ground for us every year. Because I think that's part of it too, weaving people through the garden, not just children, but people of all ages. That's really important.
And this is magical, it really is. And how wonderful to have so many of our much-loved members of the community be a part of this. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome, and I can't think of a more nourishing project for the whole community than this.
Have here Andre Pomeroy, who is the sculptor for this amazing piece of artwork here in the middle of Owen's playground. Could you tell me a little bit about how you came to create this for this very special, unique playground?
Well, Stacy had gotten a hold of me via a word of mouth, and they liked my hardscape material, and they liked what I'd done with the hardscape there. How it came about for the sculptures, that they had another wonderful artist that had a potential to bring a bronze piece in, and so well, I said, she's a great piece, but how about if you had maybe something a little larger, maybe the children could play on, and something one of a kind, and maybe in stone. And they saw a little bit of my artwork that I'd done, and they said, boy, we want to go that direction. So that's how I got started on the piece. Now the stone itself is from my quarry up in Marble Mount area above the Cascade River. It's a serpentinite, and it spoke to me. I had 4 or 5 excavated boulders, but this one had a shape to it. We wanted to stick with the pinniped or the seal type motif because that was what the other sculpture was and appreciated. And so I did that, and I chose the stellar sea lions because they were, one, the more massive. They'd be more conducive for children playing on, and because of the profiles being more substance and not as fragile. So part of that was that, but the whole concept, this one represents Owen, and this is his brother, and this is mom, this is dad, and basically acting as a breakwater from the elements. I call it Love's Safe Harbor. And I said, I told Stacy when she came up to look at it, I said, the thing is that here's your family, and you have 2 sons, and that was just, I cried, she cried, and so doing this piece, this is exactly what I've had in mind, was representing that ongoing life, and it's not over. It's all just new beginnings.
How long did it take you to create this?
That's actual working time of cutting and chiseling, and working on actual physical time about 100 hours. Design time and concept and meditating over it. I don't know if I'm going to even can tell you that. Probably twice, 2 or 3 times, because it just I let the stone speak to me and to be able to bring it out. But it was a wonderful thing for me. This is the largest piece I've done, and I've really done very little sculpting in the last 14 years. I've done some pieces. I had a piece that John Denver had bought in Alaska years ago of a giant squid and a giant sperm whale fighting, and he donated to the Cousteau family. And so I've done some really pieces. I've had some Seahawks that had some of my pieces, but I had not. I really went into doing excavating geology on my property. It became a geological resource about 4 years ago with the county of Skagit, and because the geologist said it had the most amount of stone and the most variety he'd ever seen in one spot in Skagit County, and he was just impressed. And he said, boy, yeah, definitely you're a geological resource. So this is where they came from, and the story behind it. I mean, I cried over it a number of times.
Well, and the children obviously love climbing on it. Well, thank you so much for speaking with us, and congratulations. This is a magnificent piece for this playground.
I want to thank the family and the playground for the opportunity to actually be able to present my work in the public. And that means a lot to me, and that's for the children, too, and for the family, and for all that will enjoy it. So thank you very much.
And we'll all be enjoying it for generations, I think.
I hope so.
Thank
God
you
bless
so
you.
much.
Thank you.